Hey everyone, and welcome to the first of what's going to be a multi-part mini webinar series on creative strategy here at Pedalgo. Today we're going to be talking about how to get started for newer or less mature apps and how to build the blocks for success as you move forward. I'm Matt Skurnick, product growth lead here for EMEA, and I'm really excited to talk about this with you guys. Now, for those of you who have been with us in the past in other webinars or in conferences, you may have seen this slide before. In the past, mobile user acquisition was really about audiences, bidding, different algorithms, and also creative. Today, with things like UAC campaigns in Google, AAA, other channels are also building out their algorithms. Creative is really what allows you to differentiate yourself. Now, in the future, this is going to also become even more important with the advent of iOS 14 and the loss of user level data. So performance marketers are really going to have to restructure their activity to make sure that they have creative success. Now, to start, why is this important? Why are we talking about how to organize your creative scheme? This allows you to really see what works and what doesn't work, both now and build that for the future. So all too often we do see advertisers who don't build this when they have 5, 10, 15 creatives. And then when they get to 100 or 200 creatives, they have to restructure everything. And at that point, they may have lost a lot of that historical data as they move forward. This is also going to help you quickly detect bottlenecks, whether that be on the quality side, maybe you don't have enough creatives that are doing well. Maybe on the quantity side, you have a few creatives that are doing well, but there aren't enough of them, and your risk of that on that concentration is not very healthy for your activity. Or maybe the speed of your creative iteration is holding you back. And with these things that we're going to talk about in a little bit, you can quickly see that. Now today, we are going to be talking a little bit more generally. However, as we do this, you should keep in the back of your mind some basic questions around what are my first paid channels? Where do I see the most potential growth? And what assets are needed to find success on these channels? But also, what assets do I currently have that I can utilize or reutilize in the future? Now, in this growth phase, as a younger, less mature app, you're still building your user base, and there are a few main KPIs that we do want to focus on. The first is going to be CTR. CTR is how likely users are to click on your ad right away and to get that direct response that you're looking for. However, we really want to be careful because we don't want to be too clickbaity. We want to make sure we're still relevant, because otherwise, if we look at CR, which is conversion rate, we're going to see that a lot of people are clicking our ads. However, once they get to that app store, they're not moving forwards. Maybe the ad isn't as relevant as they thought it was, or the app isn't what they thought it was. So we're going to utilize IPMs, which is installs per mil. If you're not familiar with this, please take a look at some of our other blog posts or do a quick Google search for the formula here. What this is going to enable you to do is work across both CTR and conversion rate and find the perfect balance for your app, making sure that your ads are relevant and driving the users that you want. Now, you may have noticed we've separated here the KPIs into pre-install KPIs. It's because oftentimes post-install behavior can be heavily influenced by your product. And as you build more and more users, you will start utilizing post-install KPIs in your creative analysis, but we're going to hold off until we get to a future webinar on mid-size apps and how to do creative strategy for those. So one simple way to organize your creative structure is to build out, for example, what we have here, a naming convention that's usable now, but also as you move forward. One example of that might be concept name, iteration name. Even if you don't have iterations on your concepts yet, it's really good to include that, maybe with an NA, so it'll be easier for analysis in the future. You can also include things like size. Some other options might be creation date, or placements or anything along those lines. So you can quickly see anything that might be impacting your creatives or your campaign performance. As we move into creative testing, an important thing here is to define what success looks like. What is the main KPI we're going to use? I do suggest doing IPM so it helps look between the CTR and CR. And that way you can quickly look across a few different things. As we do this, we do want to make sure that when we launch new creatives or when we test them, we are doing an apples to apples comparison. Now, what does that mean? That means making sure that if you're targeting a certain demographic group, all those creatives are meant for that demographic group, or you're using the same size creative or the same length creative. So that way, all of our creatives are going to the same place, and we're working with the same sort of benchmark metrics. We often see, for example, audience network or Google search is going to get very different results than, for example, Instagram or YouTube. So we want to make sure these creatives are aligned to go to the one place. The next thing, and you might actually end up using both of these, is the idea of quick and dirty tests. This means just putting creatives directly into a campaign or an ad set or an ad group and just seeing what that channel utilizes there. You're not so worried about making sure everything has the exact same amount of spend or impressions. You're really just seeing what picks up quickly. This is sometimes referred to as scaled testing too. The other option is a completely clean test. This means maybe utilizing a split study or making sure that all of our creatives get the same amount of impressions, maybe 10,000 impressions or something like that, and get the same amount of spend or the same amount of installs. So you're utilizing that as your apples to apples. These are two different options. And we do see, for example, a lot of times people will go quick and dirty with iterations and maybe clean on the initial concept. Last thing here is don't get into the mindset of just focusing on one specific channel and saying, I have to succeed on this channel. One thing that you shouldn't discard is the idea of trying multi-channel. You could do a version of that quick and dirty test on 2 to 3 different channels and really see where it looks like you're going to have the best results and go there. Once again, it really takes one channel, only a few creatives to get that initial growth and make it to that next stage. It's all too often one channel is the catalyst for quick growth. Now, we mentioned black boxing before and how that's happening. It's really important that you utilize some sort of tool or structure so you can consistently analyze your assets in one way. This means not going from channel to BI to Creative Studio. It means utilizing one place to house all that data and have either a dashboard or something like Bidalgo where you're able to quickly see things like creative ranks, how much spend is going to specific creatives, is your spend going to the creatives that are performing the best? Or maybe on the other hand, are there creatives that have a lot of opportunity, are performing well, and you haven't utilized to the full extent? One key thing is knowing where your creatives are. You'll see the number of ads feature there. So you can quickly see, okay, how many of my creatives might be in Facebook, might be in Google, might be in Snapchat, and where is the best or most ideal placement for this creative? So as you build out your creatives, as you do that, you want to make sure you're planning correctly. This means not just saying, hey, this seems like a cool idea, let's utilize that. We can do some research here. Some easy ways to do this are utilizing Facebook Ads Gallery or things like Sensor Tower and seeing what are your competitors doing and start bucketing those into specific ideas. Some things might be your user journey, user experience. It could be employee interviews, people who created the apps, testimonials. There's lots of different things, and you'll see as you look across different competitors, they're usually utilizing certain concepts that are similar. Now, as you go through that, don't just look at the concept, but also look at what ratio are they utilizing. Are they utilizing, for example, 4:5, vertical, landscape? What's common in the industry? Are they images or videos? And also something that's very important is how long are they? You want to make sure that your creatives are ideal for the place that they're going, so they seem native. That means if you're going to Facebook, you don't necessarily want to utilize a 1 minute long video that might work really well on YouTube. You want to make sure you're going with what is typical in that industry. Next, also don't just look at your competitors, look at other non-competitor verticals that might be nearby to have your same target market. What can you learn from them? Are they utilizing different things? One of the nice things here is you can often actually sort by impressions and see what's being utilized the most. Last thing is you might really think that your app or your product is super unique for reason X. It's possible your users actually think about it for reason Y. Or beyond that, maybe what sells your app the best is not that specific feature, but something else. And that's something that you can A/B test using those naming conventions, put something in there so that way you can quickly see, okay, what is driving that creative performance? Here's just a, for example, creative plan. It is super important that people on the UA side and people on the creative side are communicating and on the same page. Because we often see that user acquisition managers and creative team members see different things when they look at a creative. And it's important to kind of combine those ideas and for greater success. So here's an example using your concept name. What are the key components of that? Key thing here also, put the link in there. Make sure that you and whoever is producing your creative can watch that together and make sure you're really on the same page. Next, sizes, length, and lastly, future iterations. This is super important for connecting things you're doing in the future and testing those things in your data to what you did originally. You might see, for example, let's say we've done concept 4, in-app action cuts from features X, Y, and Z. Beyond that, maybe you do want to try features A, B, and C, or X and A, and you can test those future iterations and really see what's driving those results. And once again, that's a really great way of seeing your perceived uniqueness. So before we go, some tips for moving forward. Creative can be a very frustrating process. There's a reason it is a huge field and so important. And so don't expect to find that winner right away. The majority of your creatives are not going to be successful, but it's so important that just one of them is. So if you can figure out what that one is, you can make more iterations off it and kind of reduce the risk of just having that one successful creative. And that's something we're going to talk about more in the next webinar. Next thing, if you're having one, maybe two creatives that are getting the majority of the spend, don't fight that. That's actually something good. You figured out there's something in that creative that works. It's really good to analyze that. And a lot of apps, right before they hit that explosive phase, attribute their early growth to one or two creatives that's working on one or two channels. So really take a look into that. But beyond just that one creative that's getting the best results, look at where your spend is going. That might help you analyze what you want to do next on those future iterations, what sizes. The key thing is looking at the inventory. If your spend is going to a specific place and your creatives aren't aligned for that, how can you better align those creatives to improve results there? And that's one thing you can actually test in your A/B testing. If your creatives are mostly going to audience network, maybe you want to actually do an A/B test or a creative test around audience network. So as we mentioned, you're going to scale. You hit the 1-2 creatives that are really helping you grow. Fatigue is inevitable. It's something across the industry. There's a reason why people are producing more creatives now than ever before. So what we're going to talk about in our next webinar is, so you found that creative, how do you identify fatigue? What's a good way of seeing that fatigue so you can quickly produce more creative before that creative becomes a risk to you? So that before those 1 or 2 creatives really start posing a danger to your spend. So hope you enjoyed. Looking forward to seeing you guys again. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Glad to talk more about this.